Hi folks, Robert J. Simpson here. I did say I was going to try and vlog a bit more in 2022, so this is yet another attempt to do so. So it's 4th of January, just in case you're watching this in the future. And yeah, I kind of started off the year feeling pretty optimistic. I'm quite excited about some stuff that's happening, that I've been talking about doing, and some plans and collaborations that, have been in the pipeline for a while. And thinking, well, this is the year that this stuff is going to happen. Trying to not dwell too much on the disappointments of Christmas, where I literally tried to get myself as far away as possible from my usual situation, in order to have some me time. And also to reconnect with some other people, which was hugely important. And then, of course, I got, for those of you who don't watch all these things, I got COVID, which thankfully was mercifully light, but nonetheless, it still prevented me from leaving over the Christmas period because, well, I had to self-isolate, which posed its own issues and concerns and problems. There you go. The best laid plans of mice and men aft gang a gley. Yeah. So it's been slightly frustrating, but nonetheless, as the new year hit, I was in quite a positive mood, feeling really optimistic and excited. And within hours, the first of a number of things occurred to rather derail that positivity, where once again circumstances completely beyond my control were the impact of somebody else and their, quite honestly, shitty decisions had a knock-on effect on me and whatever else is going on around me. And there's been more since, which has been really, really frustrating. And I'm still sort of trying to process some of that. And I guess that's kind of what I want to talk about in the vlog today is just about the impact that other people can have on our productivity and our ability to move forward, and our state of mind. Because particularly if you're someone who deals with mental health issues and depression in particular, I mean, I would suffer. I live with depression. Let's not say I suffer from it, but I certainly live with depression, which can hit me in different ways at different times. So it's a bit unpredictable. And I was aware that actually, in spite of all the chaos and disappointment that had followed me over Christmas, I had remained remarkably upbeat. And I took this to be a good sign that actually I'm starting the year in a much better frame of mind than I have done for a long time. But that hasn't gone to plan massively well. I mean, I'm still fairly optimistic and fairly upbeat and still ignoring certain people's attempts to derail me, but I'm also consciously aware of them. So it's not, this is going to be quite frustrating because as much as I don't want to become preoccupied by certain circumstances and certain individuals, nonetheless, they are preying on my mind. Nor do I want to give the impression that they have wind me up so much that I'm like this coiled ball of frustration, thereby letting them get the sense that they have indeed achieved their goal of pretty much just disappointing me. Because also that would be wrong and not true. But I am consciously aware of it. I am consciously aware of the impact that they have had and also the one that they are trying to have. Because there are two different things. I mean, sometimes people are just silly and inconsiderate and dumb. And they do stupid things, they say stupid things, and they trigger responses in us. They set us off, they tap into some sort of emotional past or memories or thought processes, and we respond to that. And, we see it all the time. I mean, I think fortunately so far I have yet to be cancelled for any reason at all. But for people who sometimes end up finding themselves at the face of some of the cancellation tirades, they honestly believe that not all those comments that lead to those things are meant with malice aforethought. Some of them are just careless, some of them are just ignorance, and often they don't merit quite the dressing down that the mob mentality wants to give. at the same time, there are people out there who do things very, very maliciously and very, very deliberately, and who will deliberately try and provoke. There was a post that went on social media a couple of days ago here in Northern Ireland about one of our politicians, and made a reference to their dead children, which was designed entirely to antagonise and inflame. That was a very deliberate form of harassment behaviour that was conducted by that person. So it is important to draw the distinction between the two. And I've had my fair share of both over the years. And my way of responding to that has evolved and changed. I mean, a decade ago, I think the behaviour that's going on at the moment, some of the stuff that I've been experiencing and witnessing, probably would have set me back quite badly. I think I probably would have rather derailed. Whenever somebody calls into question your ability to do something, whenever somebody suggests that in fact what you're doing is not very good, that you aren't very good at what you're doing, it points out your inadequacies and feelings, or their perceived inadequacies and feelings, it can have a very detrimental effect. And obviously the whole point is it's designed to stop us in our tracks. And that can be quite complicated to deal with, and quite emotionally trying and testing. And I had an experience with somebody who went out of their way to harass me and troll me and send me messages and texts and voice messages, and I had a lot of stuff from them over quite a long period of time, and occasionally I would get a message from them that calls into question a lot of stuff, and it really did completely knock me. I doubted myself in every way, but then they were also somebody that knew me, so they had insights into part of my life. Not just somebody who thinks they know me, who maybe has read something about me and something that I've posted online, but somebody who actually had personal, proper, one-to-one, daily basis kind of knowledge of me, and knew where some of my own fears were, and my own stuff that I had regretted, and stuff that I was disappointed by, and stuff that I pondered a lot. So they knew exactly which buttons to press. We sort of realised after a point that actually that's all they're trying to do, is to press your buttons. I mean, there's an awful habit in terms of harassers and bulliers and abusers to flip the narrative back around. You'll find this in all forms of abuse, is where somebody is actually being an abusive personality. They will literally try and turn it so that it looks like it's you that's doing it, and it's a very, very difficult one to navigate, particularly from the outside, because you go based on what you see and what you read and what you're told, and there is a certain amount of trust. And if it's somebody you're more likely to trust the person that you know than somebody that you don't, or for somebody that you like, or you like the stuff that they do. It's why we have all these instances of people who make claims about abusive behaviour, and the first thing you hear from people is, well, did they really? Even, you can present them with evidence and they'll still sit down and go, well, I'm not so sure about that. So I learnt how to deal with that. And thankfully at the time I was also going through therapy for some of my own issues, and it was useful. I ended up having police involvement in that as well, as a way of dealing with it, which I would rather, it's not a path I like it going down, but I'm not afraid to involve authorities when I have to now. And it's been a weird one, because the last few weeks have sort of seen different levels of shitty behaviour from people. Some of them on a very, very personal level that I can't talk about on here, but which have serious ramifications and are having a major impact in terms of how I look at certain people and how I now go forward with how I manage those relationships. I've also been involved with some friends have been having some issues from online. I'm just going to call them bulliers, because that's basically what they're doing. And trying to find our way through that, and trying to sort of reassure them and also help them go through the proper procedure. And again, we've gone down the pathways of legal options, and hopefully that will see an end to it, because the claims that are being made and the sort of the form of harassment that's being done has no basis at all. and hopefully they can now see that. It doesn't stop someone. If someone feels entitled, or they've got power, or they've got money, they will push it as far as they can, and hopefully prey on somebody who they see as a weaker person. And then I've had some other stuff, and it's been weird because, 10 years or so ago, I walked away from my semi-public life. I walked away from a lot of the stuff that I did, and I walked away from a lot of the fandoms that I was involved in, particularly within the horror community. And I was very quickly forgotten about by the vast majority of that community, and that's fine. That's how they are, I guess. You sort of realise that there were people who were your friends and they stayed in touch, and then there are people who just interested in whatever content you brought, for as long as you brought the content, but there was nothing invested in it. It's sort of it was different back then as well. It's not like now I feel that there's people much more invested in a personality. So when that personality disappears, there's a much more direct attachment. I never did stuff like this, or not very often did stuff like this back then. But when I walked away, things sort of changed for me. And it's kind of strange because it had the odd instance of stuff. And one of the reasons that I walked away at the time was through conduct that wasn't really appropriate within my work sphere. And with individuals who were manipulative and lying to people left, right and centre about stuff, and lied to me, and just made the whole thing very sour. So coming back in over the last year has been really kind of strange. 2021, I kind of started doing stuff again, tried to get re-engaged, and I have a much smaller base of people to work with, by and large, and that's okay. I'm doing it because it's stuff that I want to share with people. I don't want to keep it all locked up to myself. And also I know there's other people out there. Part of it's me trying to gauge interest in it. And also to further conversations, because ultimately, those of you who know my work know that I love stimulating conversations about stuff. I love trying to encourage people to talk and to think for themselves, and to sort of demystify some of those lines that are there to kind of make stuff accessible. That's been my raison d'etre for so much of what I do. And I think whenever people have actually sought it out, I think I've been largely successful. On whatever small scale that is, because it ain't ever been about the numbers for me. It's just been about the quality of what I do, and I think over the years it has improved a lot. Certainly judging by some of the stuff I've revisited recently, where it's just like, oh my gosh, is that what I was saying? Is that what I was doing? Is that how I presented myself? I have changed a lot. And so it's weird kind of coming back on, but the hardest thing has been the sort of the experiencing likes of Twitter and social media now compared to how it was when I sort of walked away. I was still a presence, but not in the same way, not so active within certain communities. There's a lot more kind of bullying and intimidation and harassment and entitlement that's out there. There's a lot more manipulation, I think, as well. And there seems to be a lot less critical thinking in terms of how we engage with people. And that I see is slightly disappointing. People go for these things for whatever reason, and there's a place for all that stuff. There are certain accounts that I follow on Instagram, for example, that I follow purely for aesthetic stimulation. I literally follow them because they post pretty pictures, and that's all I want. I'm not looking for anything else from those accounts. Whereas there are other people I follow on Instagram, for example, who will post detailed information about stuff. There's other people who are working through theses about stuff, or trying to do some sort of self-development program, and I find all that stuff equally fascinating, and I try to engage with it and suck it up and absorb it. So yes, there's all of those different kind of areas that one can participate in, but abusive and manipulative behaviour is something that still goes on. It is very easy for people, it seems, to set themselves up with false names and false email addresses and anonymize everything and come after whoever they want. And if you're someone who's in a position where you have the power of an audience, to then manipulate that audience into thinking a situation is something that it is not. And I find that quite difficult to engage with sometimes. I mean, I think I've said this already, is that it's very easy for an abuser to flip things around and to accuse the people they're abusing of being the abuser. I've witnessed it myself. I was in an abusive relationship at one point, and as stuff was going through legal processes, as evidence was being gathered, they were telling people the exact opposite. Every claim that was made about them, every claim that was made about them that was supported with evidence, we'll hasten to add, was then thrown back at me. And that was very, very difficult, because obviously the people around them are listening to the stories that they're telling, and because it's their friend, they believe those stories. And I completely understand why that works in that way. But it's also very difficult for me to sit there thinking, well, they're all just believing that, and they all think this other stuff of me that isn't true. But what do? You cannot control that. All you can do is to tell, for me, all I can do is tell the truth. Not my truth, but the truth. And that's why I've always believed in sort of supporting stuff with factual evidence. It helps that I've worked as, a historian and an archivist and librarian and stuff. So I'm used to going through that process. Everything has to be validated in some way, shape or form, which other people don't seem to understand, where am I going with this? So yes, so I mean, it's this weird thing, because I think that we there's a temptation to think that in this Me Too Time's Up generation, in this sort of little epoch that we have, this moment in time, that we've made sufficient progress that we can stop being worried about people who will abuse the system and abuse other people, because there's much better ways now of calling people out. And certainly it's great because we are seeing certain long-term serial abusers and manipulators and professional bullies being called to task. We're seeing them having to answer for some of their behavior and their crimes, but it is not ubiquitous. It is not every individual who does that stuff that is called to task. I have witnessed it in workspaces. Personally, I've witnessed on a personal level of people doing the most hideous of things and getting away with it, either because they've learned how to play the system, or they use their position to manipulate what goes on, as well as a fair bit of victim blaming, which is something that it's far too easy to believe. So it's very, very, very difficult to sort of sit here and say, well, that's great, we don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. I think we do. I think it's something that we have to do on an ongoing active basis. And because the impact that it has, that kind of behaviour still has a knock-on effect. It knocks on when they pick on somebody into terms of how they feel. And sometimes that's exactly what they want to do. They want to make you feel like shit. They bring you down in every possible way in the hope that you'll just stop. That you'll stop feeling any sort of sense of self-worth. And part of the problem as well is that they feel that there are no consequences. That so many people get away with this stuff. They think that if you scrub your email after you've sent something, that it no longer exists and therefore it can't be proven it was come from you. They think that by using a false name, that somehow people will never call into question who it was that did the thing. It is. They think that by shouting bully to someone that they're targeting, that means that they have won and that they are in fact not going to be proven to be the bully. I've seen people literally go online and scrub posts on forums that completely supported the claims that were being made about them, that showed them to be the liars and the bullies that they were, and pretend like it never existed. And the frustrating thing for me is that so many of these people are the ones that get rewarded. I think that I mean I have a rule, which is don't reward bad behaviour. I apply that now in my personal life and also my professional life. It's why there's certain people I will never work with again, because they abused the system, or treated somebody I know badly, or treated me badly, and I just don't want to work with that kind of person anymore. God, there's somebody I work with for a long time who has been accused of a number of things, and I've seen some of the evidence for it. And while that person has never been taken in to where they need to be, where they've never had to go through the whole process, that doesn't mean that the stuff that was said about them isn't true. And I never want to work with them again under any circumstance, because they manipulated situations involving me too, and that's not something I think that should be rewarded. So don't reward bad behaviour. But the problem is that, you know, so often there's a kind of, oh, message there. So often we see that people who do the bad things, who bully, who intimidate, who lie, who are aggressive, are the ones that get the positions, who get the jobs, who keep on being used for gigs in the freelance world, who are the ones who make a career, while the people who are quieter, who are more cautious, who are more reserved, who don't put up the fight in the same way, or who call into question some of the suspect behaviour in the first place, are the ones who get sidelined. I've seen people literally have called out someone for being so shit, and the people around them decide to support the person that's actually being shitty, and the people who've raised the concerns and complaints get written off as troublemakers. I had some involvement with unions over the last couple of years, and seeing how people are treated whenever they get involved with unionisation in non-unionised workforces. It's different, slightly different if your workforce actually is unionised, but to even get to that point, seeing how people respond to that is appalling. You know, where you are literally fighting for the rights of your colleagues, trying to stand up to do what's right, and the situation is manipulated and you still get treated appallingly. So yeah, so I don't have a lot of time for bullying behaviour, I don't have a lot of time for bad behaviour, and I don't really want to spend my time trying to battle off somebody who has some sort of paranoid delusion, and is obsessing about whatever I may think or do. You know, the simplest way to, you know, if you're not keen on a personality, there's plenty of them out there, just don't watch their stuff. Don't watch their stuff. Don't engage with their stuff. Don't give them comments. Just let it go. You know, and the flip side is also true. Is like, if there's somebody out there who you really like and really approve of and want to see more of, then you reshare their stuff, you like their stuff, you engage with them, and you give it a nice little positive boost. That's how to do it properly. I'd also say that anyone who, I mean, I'm baffled. I mean, I know that there's some people I appear to have pissed off, and one or two of them I think I know what it's about. But there's a bunch of people I have no idea why our lines of communication have been severed the way they have been. We've never had a conversation about it. There's other people I have. There's other people I haven't. I have no idea. But if someone has an issue with me, I would rather that they were honest about it and public about it, rather than, you know, and use their own name and their own face and say it to me, rather than hiding behind the supposed anonymity of the internet, thinking that, you know, by bashing keys on a screen, that, you know, you're protected. Because of what I do, I have to put myself out there. I've never hidden who I am from anyone, and that's how I continue to do stuff. So, you know, when I'm writing about a situation, or I'm writing a negative review, or if I'm doing some kind of, you know, analytical conversation, if I'm doing an investigative piece, I've always named, you know, made my claims, making sure I've got the evidence there to support it up, and I've always put my name and my face to it. There's been several instances where I think there's only once where I couldn't post the claims that I wanted to make, and that was when I was doing a piece about the North Street Arcade fire in Belfast, which I did for the BBC. I did it a number of years ago now, but there was some stuff about that story that I would love to say, but I literally can't because of the laws of libel, and because I didn't have proof. whereas if I ever got the proof, I'd make the claims. Um, so yeah, so it's a strange thing. I think we just live in a weird world, but it's a very, very rambly kind of way of looking at this. And I guess for anyone who's actually stuck us out and watched the full 25 minutes, what I want to say is that, the thing to try and do, and it's very difficult to do when someone is trying to bring you down, is to retain a sense of perspective on things, to retain a sense of your own self-worth, and to think about the criticisms that they're leveling at you. I mean, some people will just try and bring you down by asking you questions, by trying to suggest things that you may or may not know to be somewhere else. You also don't have to respond. If someone says something to you or asks you something, you can ignore that. There's always the option to just ignore. But if someone is questioning you, your conduct, your work, and you know that your stuff is fine, then just keep that in mind. I know where my feelings are when it comes to my professional life and my work and the content that I have produced. And I always sit after I've done something and I will go back through it and I watch stuff again, I listen to stuff again, and I kind of learn from each experience that I do. When it comes to how I deal with people, I mean, it's much the same. Whenever I've had a falling out with anyone, there's a lot of self-analysis that goes on in terms of what actually happened, what led to the falling out, what are the consequences of it, why have I done this, why have they done that, and what can be done. Is the relationship one that is possible to repair? Or is it one of those relationships that actually you shouldn't bother repairing because it was bad from the start? And that's something else that I think that we sometimes forget, is that sometimes situations are bad and they should just be left alone. We end up with people that are bad for us and we shouldn't be in relationships with them. We end up working with people who are toxic, who are selfish, and again, out to manipulate things for themselves. Don't work with those people. It is harder whenever people control the purse strings and control the power. But what do you do? So this has just been a kind of half-hour ramble and thought that probably isn't going quite the way I thought it might. But I will try and post more stuff during the year. Some of it will be sort of life-affirming, positive stuff, sort of mental health and well-being things. I might talk a little bit about relationships, and I'll probably talk about professional stuff too. And if I can get up and focus, I'll do some kind of creative, reviewy, artsy stuff for you. So feel free to let me know what you want to see. I don't know if I'm particularly interested in what certain people don't want to see, but I would like to hear what you do want to see. Let's try and keep it positive. Let's try and focus on the good stuff. But for me, I mean, as frustrated as hell as I am right now by about 4 or 5 individuals, for different reasons, as difficult as they have made certain situations for me, and as frustrated as I am by that, still feeling fairly positive about what's going to happen next, and determined that this year is going to be one that works for me, and that I'm going to be able to do some stuff that I think should be fun, that should be cool, and hopefully will be, I suppose, financially rewarding might be nice too, but creatively fulfilling. And folks, I'm always happy to sit and chat. So if you're interested in having a conversation about this stuff, hit me up. You know where to get me. All the links are in the bio somewhere. But yeah. So yes, other people have a terrible habit of impacting us on a negative basis, and it's something that we have to be conscious of. Working out agendas is important. Now, what I haven't said, and I probably should do as a responsible person before I finish this, is that occasionally somebody will level the criticism at us. Somebody will make a point, or tear us a new, as they say around these parts, with absolute validity and right. I mean, if you are, bad behaviour needs to be called out, and occasionally we all do shitty things. You know, I think I've alluded to this already. Sometimes we may say something that maybe we shouldn't have done, something that was insensitive, something maybe we didn't think through, that we didn't mean to mean what it meant. Sometimes we're too rough or in our conduct, or physically rough, or we cross the line, or we're offensive on any one of a number of things. And it's important that you learn from those things. It's to hold your hands up and say, look, I did this thing and it was wrong, and I'm really sorry that I did this thing, and I'm going to do my utmost to learn from it and to not repeat this mistake. And that's okay, but it's okay to also be called out on it. And if you're caught doing something that's wrong, if you're told off because you're you know, as a guy, you're inappropriately chatting to somebody who doesn't want to be chatted to, or if you say something or touch someone or take a photograph that you shouldn't do, or spread something that you shouldn't spread, if you are making up shit about somebody or yourself and it gets called out, then you just got to own that shit. You've literally just got to kind of go, yeah, that's it, and you know, that's okay. That's appropriate kind of commentary and feedback. You know, life is not all plain sailing, and we don't all, unfortunately, get to live without anyone ever calling us out on what we do or say. So it's okay to be called out. I mean, I always want to know if I'm being called out, why I'm being called out, and to explain. But again, it's in order so that I can learn from it. You know, it's that whole thing. Like when a relationship has ended, it's sort of like you sit back and you think, and like, why did it end? Did it end because we weren't right for each other, or is it end because it was something specific, or something that I'd done, or was it something that they'd done, or you know, it's just bad timing. And with work stuff, it's exactly the same. So yeah, so thanks for sitting and listening. Probably both of you, I imagine, for sitting and listening to this, and I'll chat to you all again soonish.